Shalom, shalom. It's your brother Danal and the brother Azrael. Back again, man. Sorry for the late vid. Brother Isaiah may be joining us later on. Um, uh, yeah, man. We're gonna jump right into it. Kind of a freestyle Friday, if you will. Title of today's video is going to be called "In the Presence of Great Men." It's not gonna be a long one at all, man. Just to kind of,
Salakia too, I would like to say it's not what you think it is. It's not about Azrael. All right. It's just typical advice for being in the presence of great men.
I mean, if it was about Azrael, it would be called "In the Presence of Great Boys," but that's neither here nor there. But first and foremost, giving all honor and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We do so by way of His only begotten Son, who He sent to be a Savior for the nation of Israel, to redeem us from our oppressors. Um, we say Shalom, Shabbat Shalom to everybody out there that celebrates the Saturday Sabbath. And we're gonna jump straight into this thing, right? Um, we're gonna read a few verses from the book of Sirach, right? This is Sirach chapter 6. Again, that's Sirach chapter 6, and we're gonna start at verse 32, right? You can go and ahead and read verse 32 if you want.
Sirach or Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha chapter 6 and verse 32. My son, if thou wilt, thou shalt be taught, and if thou wilt apply thy mind, thou shalt be prudent.
Right, man. It says, if thou wilt, thou shalt be taught, meaning if you want to, man, you can be taught. Anybody can be taught, right? One of the greatest lessons in life is to become teachable, right? To become coachable. And it says, if thou wilt apply thy mind, thou shalt be prudent, right? Meaning, once you are willing to be taught, if you apply your mind, right, to be taught, you shall be prudent, right? It shall make you prudent, right? For the things that people teach you, they'll often come to your remembrance throughout your life. They'll often come to your remembrance when making decisions and things like that, and ultimately making you more prudent, right? Verse 33, and you can chime in if you want to as we read as well, right? Verse 33, we're going to read through verse um, 36. So, yeah, 33 real quick.
Verse 33. If thou love to hear, thou shalt receive understanding.
It says, if thou shalt, go ahead and read the whole verse. My bad.
And if thou bow thine ear, thou shalt be wise.
Right. If thou love to hear, thou shalt receive understanding. You got to love to hear, though, right? Um, and I like that verse, man, because we all go through stages, especially men, we go through stages in our life where we don't like to hear, right? I know there's been plenty of times where in my life where I didn't like to hear. I like to oppose, right, and rebuttal all the time. There was a time where I remember, you know, uh, me and Azrael going to the gym with our father, and even though our dad has had the experience of playing basketball, major Division 1, Division 2, for the playing for the military team, stuff like this, right? Um, Although he had all this experience, we still found ourselves not listening to him in the gym, right? He would tell us to do something, and we thought we'd be able to do it another way, right? And we steady trying to do it our way, steady missing shots because we won't listen, right? Things like that. Um, as men, there's times where we get old, or we're getting older, and we don't want to listen to folks, right? And get this, it's not always in the presence of great men. Sometimes you're in the presence of great women, right? A lot of men don't want to hear that, right? Sometimes we're in the presence of great women. In Proverbs 31, we see Lemuel getting advice from his mom, right? Telling him what a king ought to do, right? Because he was in the presence of a great woman. But you got to be able to love to hear. And so when you're in the position to loving to hear, right? Sometimes it's okay to just though, because it never fails. When somebody's trying to teach you something, you always have a rebuttal in your head. You always have something you want to say, right? In those teaching moments, sometimes you just gotta tell yourself, don't say nothing, shut up, right? Just listen. Just listen. Even though you might have a rebuttal, even though you might have an opposing thought, just listen, take it in, right? And then what I've been trying to teach myself is, especially if I don't know something and I'm trying to learn something for the first time, I'll listen and then I won't say nothing to the person till the next time I see them. Because what happens is if I listen and I take their advice into account, I don't know if that advice is going to actually work from their experience or my rebuttal is the right thing. So it works out. Why did I say it works out? Because most of the times, if I just listen to them and I do it, right, it ends up being what they said it was going to be. Okay, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? They taught me, I learned. But also, it gives me time to where if it's not what they said and my rebuttal in my head actually was the right thing, I can come to them at the end and be like, yeah, man, there's a better way to do this, X, Y, and Z. But at least in the time, I'm being teachable, I'm being coachable, right? And it's making me more of a wise person in the sense, right? And it's saving me shame from being combative, right?
Uh, and also, I wanted to say, I like the way that that this version puts it. It says, "If thou bow thine ear, thou shalt be wise." Meaning, whenever you're bowing to something, you're kind of giving homage or paying respect to or submitting to. And so, like the brother Denal is saying, it's hard for people to submit in general, but it's hard for us to submit um, our opinions, right? That's when it's talking about your ear, it's really talking about your opinions and your thoughts, right? If you bow your opinions and your thoughts, you shall be wise. Why? Because you're taking the time out to listen to somebody else's point of view, right? Um, it's we all like to think that we're smart, and we all like to think that we're discerned, but at the same time, you're even more smart, you're even more discerned when you can take in other people's wisdom and apply it to your life as well. So now you got your mind and you got other people's mind all in one, right? And that's what the Bible talks about having counselors and things of that nature. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Con, man. Con, mighty point. Let's jump into verse 34.
Verse 34. Stand in the multitude of elders and cleave unto him that is wise.
Right, man. Stand in the multitude of elders, man. What does that mean, man? Um, whether you're out in public, right? And people do this to us sometimes, right? Or you're on the job, right? You're in school, you're on a sports team. A lot of times, man, there's people that are above your pay grade, right? Maybe all of the starters are having a meeting and you're not a starter, right? It would behoove you to go and listen to that meeting if you can. If you're not excluded, you shouldn't be excluded, right? If you just wanted to listen to what's going on, to just be amongst them to understand what they're talking about, so you understand, right? A lot of times when we was playing basketball, I always wanted to be around um, the older players and stuff like that, and listen to what they're talking about, the listen to some of the problems that they're running into. That way, I'm privy to it, just in case my name get called or whatever may be the situation. But it's important to be around those type of things. It's important to be around those things on the job force, right? Where you got your supervisors or your managers or your assistant managers, right? They're talking about situations, and sometimes as a regular worker, man, the simple minded would be like, man, that doesn't concern me. That's above my pay grade. I don't want to worry about that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna go over here and count these shoes on the shoe wall, right? But the wise, even if you're a simple worker, you will be around the managers when they're discussing budget cuts, when they're discussing new SOPs and stuff like standard operation procedures and stuff like that. You'll be around them to do to gain that wisdom, and that's how wise men are brought from an abase situation to a higher calling, right? Of being around multitudes of elders, people that are above them, right? And you, I mean, sometimes you can put your input in there to let people know that you kind of up to speed and that you're kind of wise, even though you're in a low position. Sometimes you just be around and be quiet. Sometimes you can be around and be quiet, and what that does is people are gonna start noticing you. You be around, and they're gonna respect that. And it says, "Cleave unto him that is wise." Cleave unto, it's gonna explain that as we keep reading, but cleave unto them that are wise, man. You know somebody's as wise. I remember we worked in Middle Georgia orthopedic, right? There's this tall white guy named Jeremy. He kind of ran the place, and everybody just knew he was kind of wise, like how he troubleshot problems, how he could do math so quick in his head, how he could come up with certain solutions and stuff like that just off a whim. He was a wise man. You would be smart to cleave unto him so that some of that could rub off on you. You know what I'm saying? Now, in the situation back then, we was in college. I wasn't trying to do none of that, especially to no white man. But at the end of the day, man, there's stuff that you can and it would be wise of us to go back and to be annoying around this man Jeremy, to see his upbringing, how he got to where he is, how he thinks the way he thinks, right? Who does he know? Who's his mentor? Stuff like that, right?
Uh,
But verse number 35.
Verse 35. Be
Oh
willing.
yeah, and I wanted to say too, because I mentioned people do this to us all the time, right? Stand in the multitude of elders. A lot of times when we're out on the highways and byways, we'll get to talking about certain topics, whether that be of politics, of course, the Bible, right? Things of this nature. And we'll be talking. Occasionally, you'll have stragglers stop by and just listen to the conversation, just to be in an educated conversation, right? Just so they're they might not even know what we're talking about, but just being around it, they are able to learn. So after the conversation is over with, they might not have said not one word during the whole conversation, but they can walk away knowing more information than they did about the Bible or about whatever we're talking about in that moment, right?
Yeah. I know for a fact, we've had a few times where it might be a random brother got a hoodie on, he just around the corner, just standing against the wall while we having conversations, and we might say, "Hey, bro, you want to get in the conversation?" He'd be like, "Nah, man, I'm just learning, just listening to y'all boys. Y'all good, man. I'm just learning." Or you might have somebody come up, just stand in front of you while you talking to somebody, and you look at him and be like, "You doing all right?" He'd be like, "Yeah, man, I'm really just learning this. It's not every day you hear people talking about the Bible." And people come, and wisdom is very attractive, right? A lot of women say wisdom is attractive when they're looking for men, right? And so wisdom is an attractive trait to have because it attracts a certain spirit, right? When you have wisdom, it causes people to act differently around you, right? Like the brother mentioned, the director or whoever of the company was wise, right? You didn't say certain things around him. You know what I'm saying? You
Right.
watched the type of jokes that you brought out around him. You know what I'm saying?
And you didn't say nothing if you didn't know exactly what you was talking about, because you didn't want to seem like you was unwise or foolish in front of him,
Right.
you know.
And so wisdom, man, is a spirit. Wisdom is a spiritual thing, right?
That wisdom comes with a different respect, like the brother just brought up too. Now, like, we're pretty down to earth brothers, but as we get to talking and as we are around certain individuals, somebody might slip up and say something, a curse word as we know it today, and end up apologizing to us because they feel as if they offended us because of our speech or the wisdom that we are providing, right? Just like he was talking about the director, right? There's certain things and certain way. There's certain things not to say and certain ways not to act around wise men, right? Because they have the authority to not let you around anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely takes a little bit of wisdom to be around wise people as well, right?
Uh,
This is verse 35.
uh, Verse 35, be willing to hear every godly discourse, and let not the parables of understanding escape thee.
Right, man. Be willing to hear every godly discourse. Be willing to hear, man. Um, this is for the men, but this scripture right here, man, is really for the women, right? I know a lot of women check out during certain topics and stuff like that, right? Whether it be too deep, whether it be too confusing, right? Whether it's deeper confusing or whatever, don't ever step away or unbow your ear in these discourses, right? And that goes not just for the Bible, that goes for anything. Like whether you're in your job, if somebody in your job is talking about something that you have no clue about, and it's kind of intimidating, things like this. Don't ever back away from it. It's always a learning moment that you can take and learn something new that you didn't know, right? It says, and let not parables of understanding escape you. Parables are parables for a reason. They're hard to understand, right? And in that saying, don't let that intimidate you. You should take on that parable, right? And try to find the understanding of it, right? We know a man collectively, me, the brother Azrael, the brother Isaiah, and a lot of our associates around us. We know this man. He's a businessman, right? I'm gonna just say his name is Mr. Carlos Perry, right? And every time you get around Mr. Carlos Perry, he has a lot of good advice for you, but he'll also say some stuff to you that's like, what, right? He'll say, he's an older black man. And he'll say stuff really smooth and real country like, and sometimes you might not be able to understand what he's saying in the moment, right? And some people will chop it up to, man, he just talking. He not trying to make no sense. Me personally, I'm the type of person, if somebody's saying something, right? And especially if they're saying something with a serious face, um, I'm the type of person to where like I think any advice, any discourse has logic to it, right? The person who is speaking they have logic behind the comments and the statements that they make. It's my job to figure out what that person is talking about. And oftentimes, man, if you think on it hard enough, you can understand what the person's talking about. And oftentimes it's more simpler than what they're saying. Sometimes it's deeper than what they're saying, right? But don't let those parables of understanding escape you. Don't just chop it up and let it blow in the wind. Take heed to it. Try to understand it before it gets away from you.
Yeah, we live in a world of cognitive dissonance. We can pick and choose what we want to listen to and hear. Things were a little bit different, I believe, back in antiquity or days of old, as they say, because you would have to listen to things that you didn't want to take the time to listen out to. You'd have to consider certain things. And so I'll say social media does a bad job of adding to the cognitive dissonance because if you come across a certain video, you could just swipe it away. You could just swipe up, or you could just, go to something else on your screen. It could be something that's convicting you, but you won't sit there and listen to it because why? Because it's like the brother Denal just said, it's causing some sort of discourse, right? And we run away when things feel uncomfortable or uneasy, right? But a lot of times, those uncomfortable, uneasy moments, those confusing moments, right, are the things that give us understanding. For example, like Christ, a lot of time Christ left people confounded, right? And those people either dug deep into what the meaning was or they just let it escape them, right? We see that the disciples, they always dug deeper, into what the meaning was. What mean this? What do you mean by this? Right? Even if they were scared to ask, right? And so they got the understanding, and that's how they became apostles and were able to teach. But
Con, man. Con, do not let those parables of understanding get away from you. Don't chop it up like, it's just not for you to get, or it's not that deep, right? Or so and so just talking, right? There's always a method or logic behind every statement of a wise person, right? It's your job to figure it out. Let's go to verse 36.
verse 36. If thou seest a man of understanding, get thee betimes unto him, and let thy foot wear the steps of his door.
Right, man. If you see a man of understanding, and I did the same thing with the man, Mr. Carlos, man. Great guy, by the way. He helped me out, and he helped brother Azrael out, right? He's still helping us out to this day, right? Because one thing I realized is when I came in first contact with him is that he had a certain drive and a mindset that I wanted to adopt, right? He had certain connections that I wanted to adopt, right? So what I do, I wore out his foot his doorstep, right? Blowing his phone up, right? Showing up at his house unexpected, right? Hey man, meet me here. Where can I meet you at, right? And then I'm spending all day with him, sitting in his truck with him, right? Asking him questions, anything that came to my mind, I'm asking him, even if it sounds like a dumb question, right? And if he didn't know, best believe he knew somebody else that could answer it, right? You find wise people, man, and you wear out their doorstep. Um, uh, you know, this precept right here, I found a video. I was gonna play a video for you guys, but I found a video, man, but it was just a little too vulgar. Follow this guy on Instagram, man. He makes a lot of good posts, but his vocabulary, man, is a little too explicit, right? But excuse me. But in his video, man, he pretty much was saying, man, all you guys out there, everybody out there looking up to these celebrities, y'all don't know them weird people, man, right? He goes on and said, y'all don't know them weird people. He said, me, I look up to Mr. David. Mr. David stay 2 houses down. He's a garbage man. He wakes up early, right? And he comes home. He provides for his family, puts food on the table, right? He got 2 kids. They respectful. You know what I'm saying? He don't have his wife all messed up because he's sleeping around with her. He love and cherish his wife. He got grass in the front yard and the backyard, right? And he said something that was profound. He said, "But y'all too worried about what Mr. David does versus what does he know and what does he have, right?" And he said that's gonna go over a lot of y'all's head. Why? It's because you see he's a garbage man, right? So and you don't want to be a garbage man, but don't. He said, Mr. David, he don't win. He winning. He winning in life. He said, y'all want these big houses and y'all want a boat. Y'all want a European a wife, right? And she got to be born in the money, this, that, and the third, right? Not even knowing Mr. David's the one who winning, right? Y'all caught up in the matrix while Mr. David, he's living a good life, right? It's a simple good life. And, we talk about this with some of the friends that we grew up with, right? Might not make as much money as some of the guys I grew up with, right? But you wouldn't be able to tell by the way we live because that simple and clean life, man, it's just something that is admirable, and it's just an easy way of living. And that's what he's saying about Mr. David. And the last thing he said about Mr. David was, if a lot of people don't know, but there's a Mr. David in everybody's neighborhood. But a lot of people look them by, right? And when you look them by, you start to look up to these celebrities that you can't even talk to. You can't even reach out to get no advice. Mr. David, 2 houses down, he's willing to talk to you whenever. But you won't reach out to Mr. David though, right? Even though you ain't never seen Mr. David struggling for nothing. But you want to keep looking at these podcasts, watching your celebrities speak on these podcasts. You want to watch these interviews. You want to watch these Instagram reels and all this stuff of your celebrities, your idols and whatnot. And your life is stagnant because they're not giving you nothing meaningful. They're keeping all that meaningful information to themselves, right? because that's what celebrities do, man. A lot of celebrities are selfish. A lot of celebrities are doing a lot of strange stuff for a lot of change, right? That they won't tell you that they did to get where they were. But Mr. David, man, he got everything he got honestly and earnestly, right? But you won't wear out his steps, and he's two the houses down, And so I would say I bring this precept up to encourage you to look around your surroundings, right? A lot of us don't even know we're in the presence of great men day in and day out, right? Because our horizons are too broad and we can't even look what's near and close to us, right? I have a ex line brother, right, and he posts on his story all the time. God is in the neighborhood. Whenever somebody close to him is getting blessed, right? He says God is in the neighborhood, right? It's the same thing, man. God is in all y'all's neighborhood, but are you looking for him, right? And the things that he is about, or are you looking elsewhere to things that your mind wants, your foolish mind wants, right? You know what I'm saying? We used to work at Savannah Riverside, and I gained a lot of wisdom during that time because the whole time we was working, I wasn't allowed to have my phone. We was in a private sector where we couldn't have phones, and we was working for the government and stuff like that. But I was around a lot of older men. I was the youngest guy on my side, and I was around a lot of older men, and they put me on game to the mindset of saving money, right? They put me on game the mindset of buying vehicles that are reliable, right? And which vehicles those were. They put me on game on how to manage my time if I wanted to have like side work and stuff like that. And all that stuff stuck with me even to today. And I'm acting on that stuff today, right? Because I was in the presence of great men. You know what I'm saying? And I was always inquisitive, asking questions, right? That's one thing I think a lot of older people like about me. Not trying to sit up here and toot my own or nothing like that. But it's a skill that I've learned to possess is being inquisitive and asking questions, right? And asking questions at the right time, knowing when to listen and knowing when to ask questions, right? A lot of us find ourselves in awkward situations when we're riding in a service truck with somebody, or if we're in somebody's office, or we're in the lobby waiting for somebody with somebody, and there's an awkward silence, and instead of making conversation, everybody just got their heads down in their phones, right? Or you might be humming a song or whistling or something like that. Take that time to ask that person that you're with questions. Yeah, man, where'd you grow up? Who you know? What'd you do before this? What you trying to do? Matter of fact, how'd you get your position? Right? Ask questions, be inquisitive, right? And this works in all aspects of life, right? When you never know who you're in the presence of, and a lot of times you're in the presence of great people. Utilize them, man. That's what God put us here for, right? Is to network with each other, to talk with each other, especially the people, our brethren, right? Brothers and sisters of the same kind, right?
Yeah, a lot of times, man, you get the most wisdom from the people you don't want to talk to.
Con,
The people that you think that you don't want to talk to or you don't have nothing in common with.
right,
Sometimes those are the people you're supposed to, you're supposed to be listening to, right? They might be older, they might be a little weird, they might, be broke, right? They might be homeless. So you talk to a lot of these homeless people, they got a lot of wisdom for you because they can tell you the mistakes that they made in life. And a lot of times people just don't want to take the time to listen to these people because they feel like they're better than these people, or they feel like that person has nothing to teach me. But those are the people that be giving you the most gems.
right. That's a fact, man. Like when I was working at this place that I mentioned, right, Savannah Riverside. When I was working at Savannah Riverside, man, they paired me up with this old white man. He had to be like 60 years old, man. You know what I'm saying? I thought I had nothing in common with him. I worked with him for a little over a year, and at the end of me working with him, man, I ain't gonna cap, man. I felt like Joe. He was like one of my best friends. You know what I'm saying? Never in a million years when they first paired me up with this guy, because I was an apprentice at the time and he was a journeyman. Never in a million years did I think that I was gonna become close with this old white man, bro. Never in a million years. But he gave me a lot of game, right? And I added on to it with some of the stuff that I knew as well. And we just hit it off. You know what I'm saying? He commended me on being a young man that was willing to learn and my ability to be teachable and coachable. So it is one of the greatest skills it is out there, right? So close to this man to where I had stopped working. I had moved on with my life. 2 years later, man, I'm getting a phone call from Buddy while he at work. He's still there. They giving me a phone call, checking up on me, seeing how I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? So you never know, like the brother Azrael just said, you never know what type of relationships you can build if you open up your mouth, right? And wear out the doorsteps of these great men, right?
Yeah, I also want to say too, man. I know we in the truth, but don't limit yourself and say I can't learn nothing from these heathen, right? Especially in this earth, and the land of the living that we're in today, right? You could learn quite a bit from them heathen because they know how to navigate in this world. They've had some experience and some ups and downs in their life too. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But
And
don't go ahead.
and a lot of people know we're in a deficit coming out of slavery, man. We're X amount of money behind them because we started out with no wealth and they started out with wealth and this, that, and third. But keep in mind, we're in a deficit of knowledge too. And a lot of times when you talk to white people out here, right, they know a lot of information that they just assume that you know, and you don't. You know what I'm saying? They think it's common knowledge, but it's really not to us. So it's good to talk to them, like the brother just mentioned. I remember we were trying to be a physical therapist once upon a time, and we majored in biology. If you know anything about biology, it's not no cakewalk, right? Especially once you get into your organic chemistries and stuff like that, right? I talked to somebody that's already a physical therapist, and I asked him, "Yeah, man, man, undergrad was tough." He said, "For real?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Would you?" He said, "Would you major in?" I told him about biology. He said, "Why'd you major in biology?" I said, "Man, because I wanted to become a physical therapist." Would you major in? He told me he majored in PE, physical education, right? So what happens is he said he majored in PE and he just took the one or two classes that he needed to have on his undergrad, and then he buckled down in graduate school when it was time to go to physical therapy school. But his whole undergrad was just fun and easy, and that's stuff that we don't know, right? Had I known that, I would have majored in PE and then went into physical therapy school afterwards, right? If I knew you could do that, I didn't know you could do that. I thought you had to. They were only accepting folks that that took the hard route, you know. But it's little stuff like that, man. You start to gain understanding and wisdom, and you can pass it on. Now, my life is over with. As far as that go, but I can pass it on to my daughter, pass it on to my nephews, right, my nieces. I could pass that stuff on for them, and it's all because I was inquisitive and I had the conversations that I needed to have, right. But this is Proverbs 1 and 5. You can go ahead and read that for me.
Look at Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 5. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels.
Right, man. Just like we've been saying, a wise man will hear and increase learning, right? You can increase learning by just acting on something that somebody told you, right? A man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. We just talked about that, right? Um, if you have any type of wherewithal, um, you will always attain wise counsel. You should be striving to attain wise counseling every day, right? You should be striving to learn something new every day, right? Especially if you're young. Because I can tell you right now, um, about to be 30, but I believe, man, if you really, man, I mean, learning doesn't stop. But if you're under the age of 35, there's no way that you know everything of anything about life. And there's always something new you can learn every day, right? Verse 6 for me.
Verse 6, to understand the proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings.
Right, man. Same thing we was talking about, like Mr. Carlos, man. He might say something like, man, there's 12 keys, there's 12 keyboards in a day, and you can't strike all of them, right? He might say something weird like that. It's your job to understand these dark sayings, right? What's he talking about, right? One of a old proverb or wise saying is what is it like? Uh, a bird in the hand beats two in the bush or something like that, right? I remember when the first time I heard that, I'm like, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? And it means something simple like, if you already have one, don't neglect the one that you have to try to get two that are hard to get. Enjoy the one that you have already, right? But these dark sayings, you got to be able to be around, and you got to be wise to break these things down too now, right? And what it's going to do is going to sharpen your mind. It's like playing chess. It sharpens your prudence, right? What comes next? These dark sayings, they sharpen your mind, right? And people start talking, you start to pick up on things pretty quick, right? You can always tell somebody's wise as the more proverbs that they know, that they can regurgitate, that somebody says to them and they understand, right? And be like, dang, how you know that? You've been around wise men. I can tell, you know. Um, that's gonna lead me into Sirach 22, and we're gonna read a couple verses in Sirach 22. It's gonna be the kind of the opposite, right? We talked about how to be striving to be around wise men and being in the presence of wise men, and being the wisdom that comes with that. Now we're gonna talk about kind of the opposite of that and the foolishness that can be found in that same paradox as well, right? Let's go to Sirach 22. We're gonna start at verse 7. I'm gonna read a couple, man. Right?
Come on. 22 and verse 7. Whoso teacheth a fool is as one that glueth a potsherd together.
Right, man. And it's just talking about like a pot or a pan. If you read it in other versions, can you read it that one?
And as he that waketh one from a sound sleep.
Right, man. Who so teaches the fool is like one that teaches one that is it's like one that is glue with a pot together, right? A broken pot together, right? Let me read that. So if I read that in layman's terms, it's like he that teaches a fool is like one that's putting a pot together with glue, right? And most significant the most significant thing about that is this, right? When you're teaching somebody, you're pouring into them. Now, when you're teaching somebody that's like putting a pot back together, you got to put them together first before you can even pour into them, right? Think about how inconvenienced that is. That's somebody that's not teachable. That's somebody that's not willing to learn. Somebody that just says, man, that crazy nigger. That crazy nigga, I don't know what he's talking about, right? It's like you got to put them together. And this goes also for people that are depressed, that feel down about themselves, right? That are intimidated, they got imposter syndrome. It's hard to teach them because you got to build them up first. And then you got to pour into them versus them being already able to catch whatever you're going to pour into them. It says, and that he that waketh from a sound sleep. Read verse number 8 for me.
Verse 8. He that telleth a tale to a fool speaketh to one in a slumber. When he hath told his tale, he will say, what does this matter?
Right, man. It's like you telling us. It's like you're trying to teach somebody that is in a deep sleep. I can contest to this. My wife, right. Whenever she wakes me up and I'm in a deep sleep, and then I finally wake up for the rest of the day, and she brings up something that she mentioned to me when she woke me up, and I'm like, huh? I don't remember that. I don't remember that. Right? I'm just trying to go back to sleep. It's the same way, right? It's like the same thing. If you waking up somebody and you tell them something, right? And then you ask them again when they're finally awake, they're gonna say, what does this matter? What you mean? You know what I'm saying? And they're like, I just told you this.
Right. Also, it's like when it says he will say, "What does this matter?" It'll be like a lot of times you talk about it the next day and you thought they were paying attention to you, but they was half asleep, and they say, "What are you talking about?" Because they don't even remember it, right?
Right.
What does this matter? What are you talking about? They don't even remember what you said, so it was a waste of time. You're gonna have to tell them all over again, right?
Exactly.
I looked up what the word potsherd meant, and it's like the brother said, a piece of ceramic material or uh, artifacts and stuff like that. So also what it's trying to say is he that teaches a fool is like somebody that's trying to put together an old artifact. It's hard and tedious, right? And repetitive. You know what I'm saying? It's not an
Right.
easy
You gotta
task,
find the right words to put it, to
right?
put
Like
the
a
phrases
puzzle.
in, man. Like, nah, that piece don't fit, man. Let me say it this way. You know, that's a
That's
mighty
how
point.
on the street, that's how we are all the time. We run into people that we gotta find the right way to say it because the first three times we said it, they didn't understand. And they
Right.
act like what we said we didn't just say. So we
Or
gotta
they might be too sensitive. Or they might be too sensitive, and now you gotta watch what you say because you say the wrong thing, they're gonna go up the street, right? It really becomes the opposite, right? So you're supposed to be chasing the wise men, but the opposite for fools is a wise man is kind of chasing the fool to try to get them to understand, and it shouldn't be that way, right? The wise man should be carrying around about his business, and his day should be interrupted by the fool, not the other way around, right? Read verse 12 for me.
verse 12. 7 days do men mourn for him that is dead, but for a fool and an ungodly man all the days of his life.
Right? It's saying, man, um, 7 days men mourn for the fool, for the dead, right? But for a fool, man, people mourn all the days of their lives. All the days of your life, you wondering like, man, when is so and so gonna get it? You know what I'm saying? Like, man, I gotta go back to work tomorrow and be around so and so. Like, you know what I'm saying? These stuff it'll at least if somebody's dead is like, man, they at rest. Whatever they was going through was over with. But you talk to somebody, man, that's a fool that doesn't want to take any advice, and they just keep hitting hardships, and they keep getting depressed, and keep getting intimidated and having imposter syndrome and whatnot, right? It's hard to be around those type of people, man. Always woe is me. I was talking to my barber, man, and he was saying he was a roommate with somebody, and he said, man, I'm not gonna say his name just for out of respect, but he said, yeah, man, I used to live with so and so. Everybody think Buddy funny, you know what I'm saying, that he always be joyous, but every time he used to come home, he used to drink and always talking about how he want to kill himself, this, that, and third, and X, Y, and Z. He said, man, I used to hate it. I used to tell him, go ahead and kill yourself, bro, because every day, man, I don't want to hear this. And that's how it is, right? Being around that type of people, that type of person, right? Um, it's mourning for them all the days of your life versus that 7 days for the dead, right? Let's read verse 13.
Verse 13. Talk not much with a fool, and go not to him that hath no understanding. Beware of him, lest thou have trouble, and thou shalt never be defiled with his fooleries. Depart from him, and thou shalt find rest, and never be disquieted with madness.
Right, man. Talk not much with a fool, man. Right. We were just talking about this in our at our men's night. We have men's night every Thursday, and brothers started saying, "Yeah, man, for my sanity, for my peace, you know, I had to leave at so and so's group chat. I had to leave this group chat. Yeah, I had to get off a Clubhouse for my sanity, right? Because you talk too much with fools, bro. You listen to too much garbage, man. It's gonna rain on your parade, man. It's gonna be heavy every day. Like, you gonna want to say something, but it's not gonna be worth it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to waste your breath, but it's a heavy task, and that's why it says talk not much with a fool, man. You're really saving yourself when you do that, not the other person, you know. Um, it goes on to say, what is heavier than lead, and what is the name thereof but a fool? right? Saying a fool is heavier than lead. Like I just said, man, being around a fool, man, it gets heavy. Even being in group chats with fools, man, it gets heavy, right? Saying sand and salt and the mass of iron is easier to bear than a man without understanding, right? Those are some hard stuff to bear now, right? What else have we got? It says that as timber girt and bound together in a building cannot be loose with shaking, so the heart that is established by advised counsel shall fear at no time. Meaning, if you take advice from wise counsel, right, you'll never be in a situation that'll make you fretful. You'll always think about it wisely and soundly, and try to be more solution minded versus complaining, right? There's one more precept that I wanted to read. Let me see something real quick. I think I said it, please. So, read verse 18. I think that's the last one.
Con. It's right, 22 and 18, if you could scroll up a little bit. Con. Pails set on an high place will never stand against the wind. So a fearful heart and the imagination of a fool cannot stand against any fear.
Come on, man. What this really saying, man? It says pails, right? Other translation says pebbles, but it's set on a high place, like on the wall. When that wind comes, man, it's gonna blow them pebbles away. It's gonna blow them empty pails off the wall, right? It says so as a fearful heart and the imagination of a fool, right? Because fools are often intimidated, right? They're often found without answer, right? They're often found with imposter syndrome, right? And they're not being able to stand against any type of fear. Versus the wise, like we just read about 2 verses ago, about they when they find themselves into trouble, they can think critically. We see it all the time, man. For instance, you got shows like the Power Rangers, right? When trouble faces you, you got people like the Red Ranger that can take lead, take charge, and think critically in fearful times, right? You got Raphael and the Ninja Turtles and Scooby Doo, right? Um, while Scooby is jumping into Shaggy's arms during scary times, you got what's her name, Velma, and you got that the strapping blonde headed guy that can think clearly in scary times, right? Um, and that comes from being around wise men. Wise men, being around wise men and wise women will instill in you a confidence, right? It'll instill in you a confidence even when you're alone. A lot of it is take this with a grain of salt, but good emulation. You see how somebody acts in a certain manner, and you kind of take on the same characteristics when you find yourselves in frightful situations, right? It's what good leaders do. They put their soldiers in the mindset of them, like Leonidas in 300, right? He's willing to die for his people, so his soldiers are willing to do the same thing that they see that their leaders doing, right? And it's the same thing in every aspect of life. But you have to put yourself in the presence of great men or great women, right? You have to put yourself in the presence of these people. And it's gonna do nothing but empower you and to strengthen you and to help you be the best version of yourself that you can be. But that's all I got. You got anything?
Nah, man, mighty lesson. You know, uh, two major points. Listen to wise people and try to keep yourself away from fools. Right? Fools are just gonna make you mad to where you can't sleep at night. You're gonna always think about what you should have said and how you could have said something and how could they not just understand it? How can they not get it? We're always getting brothers to vent to us about them having conversations with fools. Don't have a conversation with a fool, right? Instead, do what you're not doing and have conversation with wise men, right? We're so quick to have discourse and debates and arguments with fools. We don't even have conversations with wise men. So in the presence of a great man, listen, man.
Con,
Listen.
con, man, con. Listen, man. Put yourself in the right situations, right? Um, Reach out to the Mr. Davids on your street, you know. But without further ado, man, we give all honor and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We do so by way of His only begotten Son, who He sent as an instrument of salvation for the nation. Right? Remember, uh, our Lord and Savior, that same man that was sent for our salvation. He said in the book of Luke, "If you're not helping to gather, you're helping to scatter." Right? So put your brick in some way, shape, or form. Don't just keep these commandments. I mean, keep these commandments for sure, but add on to that, bring somebody else into the fold. At least strive to bring somebody else into the fold. Make yourself a living vessel to be used, right? And we'll see you guys next time, hopefully tomorrow. Shabbat shalom to all, and Khan shalom.
Shalom.